Hello, my name is Butch Porter, and this is Great Conversations. We are here with Suzanne Fox, who's the Vice Mayor of the great town of Leesburg, Virginia. Thanks for coming.
You bet.
We're actually at Beacon Hill Manor. You're in the wedding business, right?
I am in the wedding business. Full service, it feels like.
Full service. Does it just feel like that, or is it actually
No,
like
it
that?
actually is.
Okay. Well, that's good. Well, tell me more about that. How'd you get into that? How'd that happen?
Strange how that happened. I moved here back in 2003 from California, and out there I had a notary business, and I went around, did some notary. I wanted to do the same thing back here, so I visited the Loudoun County Courthouse, wanted to start a notary, accommodation signing business. Couldn't do that, was really upset I wasn't able to do that. So I talked to a friend that I made. She says, well, why don't you just marry people? They know you over there. And I said, marry people? So I went ahead and I was appointed as civil celebrant through the Loudoun County Courts. And it took me a good year and 2 months to do my first wedding because I was too scared to do it.
Why?
I have a hard time talking in front of people.
Really?
I do.
What about cameras? Do you like talking in front of cameras?
I'm okay. Normally.
Yeah. See, Suzanne's mad at me because I didn't give her any guidelines for this conversation. But the goal is that we want to talk about things in a way, talk about ideas in a way that we're not supposed to talk about ideas, right? We're only supposed to talk about our kids' soccer games or or work or
even
the weather.
Taboo. Yeah.
Or even that's taboo.
That's true.
So, all right, so you're in the wedding business, and I think you and I moved here around the same time. We moved here in May of 2003 is when we moved to Loudoun County as well.
I'll be I didn't know we had that in common.
Yeah, no, it's pretty wild. We came out of South Carolina, and the goal was to get as far north as possible and still be in the South, right? So I think we almost pulled it off.
I think you did it.
I think I did it, right? The Potomac is like right over there. So, tell me. So you decided to run for town council at some point.
I did.
And why would you put yourself through that sort of torture and mayhem and chaos?
That is funny. Everybody asked me that when I decided to run.
Everybody.
They said,
why would you do that to yourself?
What are you thinking? I had no idea at that point when people were telling me about that what I was thinking. My main goal was service. When you're asked to serve, you serve, and that's what I do.
Well, talk more about that. What do you mean by service?
Well,
that's not the only way to serve, right?
There are more than one ways to serve.
Right.
However, I don't see politics or holding political office as anything but a service to your fellow man. I know that for other people, it's different. But to me, it's not. Service is service. It's not about me. It's about who you're serving. And that's always been my philosophy.
Do you feel like, or did you feel like it was your duty? Like if you didn't do it, then, who was going to do it kind of thing? Obviously there's plenty of people who want to run for office.
Yes.
There's no shortage. We got 50,000 people in Leesburg. Honestly,
that year, I guess 4 years ago when I was asked to run, there was really nobody stepping up.
Okay.
And I was looking at town politics and I was seeing what was going on town council. Not that it was overly bad, I just didn't see a lot of balance on the council. I saw a lot of ideas coming down from the state level and affecting the town, and the town was entertaining some of these things, which I don't think in and of itself is a bad thing, but the town had no purview over it, and I was a little worried that we were getting into some things that we had already representatives to represent us during, for those ideas.
Right.
So I saw it as somewhat of a waste.
Type of things, or?
Let's see. I guess one of the biggest things was at that point it was Medicaid expansion.
Okay.
And so I saw that the town council was having people come in to convince, the town that Medicaid expansion is fine. Well, that's fine.
What does the town have to do with Medicaid expansion?
That was my point.
Okay.
The town has nothing to do with that. We have representatives who help us out.
Well, sure, that's a state thing. It's not even a county thing.
Right.
It's a state thing.
So that was probably one of the reasons I ran, but for the longest time I said, no, it's not me. No, I don't like talking in front of people. I got up on that dais the first time and almost froze because I was scared to death. But
yeah. Well, what is it that you look to in order to determine what's a good decision on town council? What are the things that drive your decision making? What are the values that animate them?
I always said this: principles. I have a set of principles that I adhere to, that I've always adhered to, and you just take it into the political realm with you.
Now that sounds crazy.
It does sound crazy.
No, okay. So when you say principles, you mean can you give me an example? You don't have to list them, but give me kind of an example of a principle that you apply maybe to your wedding business that you apply to your role in town
Seek not
council.
to be divisive.
Seek not to be divisive.
Be a unifier. Be kind to one another.
Be
Work
excellent to one
together.
another.
Be excellent. Yes, be excellent.
I'm kidding.
But be there for one another. Talk to one another so you can solve problems together. I see too much division in politics, even at the town level, which really is something that has bothered me, especially this year. Over the past 4 years, I've seen the divide grow, and I've been worried about that.
Yeah, well, unity sounds great, but the challenge is there's different points of view. There's different angles. There's different sets of principles that animate people who are involved in politics. Other than what makes yours. I mean, if I talk to any politician, a lot of times they'll say, "Why can't we all just get along?" But the challenge is, as you know, there's different sets of principles that people bring to their politics.
I don't feel exactly.
Right.
I mean, and for me, I was brought up and remain conservative. And
Right.
those are the principles that I bring to politics. However, because I'm in politics, I also bring the things that are necessary to succeed. Where I see failure is not being able to talk to one another. I
Sure.
bring the let's be kind. Let's change the tone. I think the tone has gone downhill in the last 4 years, and I want the civility to come back into politics. I remember it being there. I know politics has never been it's never been the perfect thing, but
Right.
I've seen it be civil. I don't see that a lot anymore.
Yeah, do you think, my take is that civility is one thing, but I think another is actually being willing to talk about the ideas themselves.
I think there are people who are scared to talk about ideas themselves.
What do you mean?
I mean, if it's an idea that you think somebody else would disagree with you on, why would I broach that subject with that person? I think we need to be able to talk about things.
Right.
Because I think by not talking about them, that divides us a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, so I think if we're seeking, one way of looking at it is, and this is just me, but if you're seeking, I think there's two different ways to approach disagreements, right? You can approach it in the way of, well, this is your side and this is my side, and one of us is going to win, or both of you are seeking truth, right? So do you feel like that latter?
Ladder's better for the town. I do know that.
Well, sure, because there's certain things that shouldn't be very partisan, right? There's certain things that are, I'm assuming.
Of course.
But there are things that aren't. So you decided to run again. I don't want to spend all the time on your campaign, but do you feel like there's been enough progress to where you think you can accomplish more, or do you think that it's gotten worse or better in the last 4 years? I mean, we've had a certain person run for president, in the last 4 years, and that hasn't, I think many could argue that regardless of the fault and whose side or whatever, I mean, there's possibly more divisiveness now than there was in 2013.
I agree.
Or 14. But so if it's worse, then do you think, what is it we can do about it? What is it that we can do to improve it?
All right. Well,
Not just me and you not just you as town council member, but
set the example.
Right?
I alluded to the fact that I've seen this division at the federal level, down to the state level, down to the county, and now seeping into the town. So because I am at that bottom rung at that town, which I'm fine with, you plant a seed as a grassroots person.
Sure.
And you try to nourish that and see what a beautiful thing can happen as it grows upwards. And so I don't feel like this is a top-down thing. I don't think we're going to get any leadership about civility, about being humble, about humility from our the folks in the White House, the folks in the Senate, the folks in the Congress.
No, I don't.
All together.
I don't see that coming.
So I think it starts at the bottom, and we have to plant and see it grow upwards.
So you mentioned humility. That's one that I talk about a lot with my friends, not just about elected officials, but about anybody in authority or anybody that has influence. There seems to be a decided lack of humility in the public sphere.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that stems from getting into politics for all the wrong reasons. I think there are selfish reasons some people get into politics, is to promote themselves and their idealism instead of being a person of service.
Well, sure. I mean, I always joke with people about, local politics. They can't be doing it for the power, right?
No. What is, yeah.
I mean, even the mayor doesn't have an office.
Not the power, not the money. Listen, no.
It's not money or power, not in Virginia.
It's not
that I'm aware of.
And
Maybe the county has power. I don't, maybe Phyllis has power.
I know the town does not. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I've never felt like the town council had a lot of power, right?
We're trying to change that.
Which is kind of a good thing. Oh, really? You want to gather up power now?
We don't want to be.
Great.
No, not power. We just don't want to be told you need to do this and you need to do that.
By who? Who's telling you?
By those governmental entities that are up on the run a little bit more.
So Virginia's telling you what to do, and the federal government's telling you what to do. And
yeah, there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
And so, Leesburg has a reputation for just doing what other people tell them to do. And so that's
well, it's a Dillon Rule state, right? So we can't. I mean, I know that sounds kind of nerdy.
It is
pulling out the Dillon Rule state here, but there's two kinds of ways of doing it. Either everything we do we have to go get permission for if it's not already allowed,
right?
Or everything we do we can do unless they told us explicitly not to. And we are of that former. Here in Virginia.
Yeah.
So do you think there's
change that? I'm just kidding.
Well, but there's good things that come from that,
That's
right? There's, you guys can't raise taxes without a referendum in many cases, which is a net positive.
City
property
status.
Rights.
Property rights, I get it, but city status is another one. Not that we want to become a city, but if we did, they're telling us you can't. And that's one thing that I'm having a hard time with. And they're trying to actually set a permanent moratorium with city status.
Why would we want to become a city?
Well, I personally, I don't, because I think taxes would need to be raised. There's a lot of services that we get.
Isn't the argument, though, that we wouldn't be paying into the county anymore, right? Wouldn't
Correct.
that be the argument? Okay.
That would be the argument.
Right.
I haven't done all the math myself, but I've seen
There's a lot of math involved.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. It's not a simple scenario.
It's not. There's a lot of moving parts to that.
We are the largest town in the state.
Correct.
Right.
There are cities that are smaller.
Yeah. Well, so what are some of the things that you feel like, I guess, provide the most reward when it comes to being on the town council? Because as I mentioned earlier, when you first get into it, people say, "What are you, crazy?" It's I just think of like potholes and street lights.
We're supposed to keep those things running and running smoothly.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound very sexy.
It's not, but it doesn't.
But
it doesn't matter whether or not it's sexy.
That's true.
One of the things that I like is getting an email from somebody with a certain concern.
Sure.
And being able to go and troubleshoot that concern and getting a good outcome for that person. That's the service that matters to me. And if it helps them, great. If it helps somebody else because they've asked, great. So that's what it is to me. And you're right. We're supposed to just keep the roads clear.
Right.
We're supposed to keep the buses running, that kind of thing. That's what our purview is. We're not supposed to get into the social issues, although we have our own ideas about the social issues.
Sure.
Those are supposed to stay out of town politics, and that's
ideally. Well, I always
just
joke,
saying.
I always joke that all politics in Loudoun County is national.
Yeah.
Right,
that whole
all politics is local doesn't apply in Loudoun County. Loudoun County, all politics is national because the people who work on national campaigns live here.
That's exactly the point. It is, and
it gets a little aggravating.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's hard to be a small town, thing right next to DC. So.
And we're not a small town. We're a big town.
We are a big town,
yeah.
But it's a small city, I guess.
Yes.
If it were a city. For those who don't live in Virginia, cities and towns are completely separate things in Virginia. So you can't be in a town.
Some people call it a city, and I sit there and go, "No, we're a town."
Yeah. So what is it that you feel like you can accomplish in the next 4 years? We spent the whole time on your vice mayorship. We can talk about something else if you want.
Oh, it's up to you. I'm good with pivoting and talking about something else.
So So what is it that you feel like can be accomplished, not just by you, but by the town council in the next years?
Well,
we're growing. We're still growing.
That's the growth. The growth
is that going to slow down, or is not going to slow down?
No,
right?
I don't see that happening. I've seen where we've had very slow growth, and I kind of alluded to this before when we were speaking last night too.
Sure.
At the park, but we are growing leaps and bounds. And everybody knows it, and everybody wants to be here, and I'm happy about that.
Sure.
4 years ago, the downtown, wonderful downtown, but it was a little sleepier than it is right now.
Sure.
And the businesses have really pulled themselves up and really rejuvenated that downtown.
Kind of become a nightlife kind of place.
Yes.
It's more of a bar town than it was before, which is part of what everybody kind of wanted. We needed a nightlife, a younger crowd, and all of that.
And
You think that's a net positive, or?
It's going to be a net positive.
We've lost some
I know
retail.
that we have lost some retail. I would love to see more retail come in, and I would support anything. I've got good ideas for that too. I'm just saying, but
Easy now.
yeah, I won't even go there.
Yeah,
my husband looks at me and goes, "No, just don't
just
stop."
Shush, just stop. No, I think you know me. I'm a big fan of letting the market kind of make those determinations for us.
Yes.
But I think there's some things you can do to make it easier to do business in the town of Leesburg. Right?
Trying to help those folks, give them the tools that they need to have their businesses succeed. Those are the kinds of things. If there's any sort of burdensome regulation that we can do something about, I just say, government, get out of the way. Let them operate, and let the market take care of itself. When you talk about principles, there you have it. There's a principle right there.
That's a good one. No, I'm a big fan of that one. That's one of my favorites. Okay, so can you think of any more that are like top for you?
About liberty. I'm a very liberty-minded person.
Okay.
I don't like government intrusion in private life. If it can be helped.
Yeah.
You need some regulation. I get that. For a civilized society, yes, but it can go too far, and we've witnessed that. I think we all have witnessed that to one point or another.
Sure.
I witnessed it in my own life, and so I will stand for that every chance I get.
Yeah, I heard you mentioned you're a conservative, and anybody who's ever heard me talk for more than 3 minutes knows I use that label too.
Yeah.
And I heard a great rendition of the difference between conservatism and liberalism, and tell me if you think this matches up. Liberalism being seeking a solution to something, and conservatism looking at trade-offs. And that kind of hit home for me. I kind of felt like everything that we look at when it comes to trying to determine a prudent and rational decision for something, trying to help one group or solve one problem, we usually have we have this sort of tendency to ignore the consequences.
Yes, and every time we have something come before council, what runs through my mind is, are we creating a bigger problem by trying to solve this problem? If that's what we're doing, I try and back off from it.
Yeah, if you didn't know you were conservative before, that makes you a conservative.
It runs through my mind every single time, without fail.
So do you think there's a legitimate amount of hope for bringing back sort of I want to say bipartisan, because the parties don't concern me, but more of a
unification?
Well, unity has its challenges too, I guess. It
Sure.
can be unified and wrong, right?
But I'm not.
That's right. What is it, that H.L. Mencken quote where he says, there is a solution to every human problem. It is neat, plausible, and wrong. Right? So unity can be a challenge, but at least civility, and at least, my take is the dialectic as opposed to the heuristic. In other words, we're trying to seek truth and try to solve a problem, even if we've acknowledged that we may not solve it without causing more problems.
I can easily acknowledge that.
As opposed to just trying to win arguments. I think a lot of people get on the dais and they want to win arguments.
I agree with that. I've seen a lot of that in my 4 years, which is ultimately why I decided I probably should stay in, because I feel like I have been a good voice of reason. I don't lose my cool yet, I suppose. I have to put that caveat in there.
Sure.
But I feel like that's my strength.
Okay, one more. I have to ask you this one. This is one that, any good books you're reading lately? What are some of your favorite books that you've read?
No, I'm just kidding. I don't have time to read read any books.
You don't have time to read any books.
Well, there is a trilogy that when I have the time,
Okay.
I go to it. It's called 1 Second After, 1 Year After, and The Final Day. And I can't remember who it's by.
That's okay.
I'm in that second book
It's fiction,
right now.
though.
It's fiction based on, yeah, it is fiction. I will say that.
Okay.
But it helps me understand what could happen, especially in this area where we live so close to DC.
Right.
We're right in between Mount Weather and DC. What could actually happen? And every time I read something in there, I'm going, well, that can happen here.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm right in the middle of that trilogy. But I haven't read it for a while.
That's okay. That's okay. It's just one of those things I have to ask. Right? Hey, look, I really appreciate you hanging out with me today. I think it's been a ton of fun. I hope you enjoyed it.
You're not too bad to hang out.
Yeah. It could be worse. It could be worse. I could have had questions about different things. But no, I really do think I think it's healthy for us to have as many of these conversations about why we do things as opposed to just what we do. And so I appreciate you going a little bit into why.
I appreciate the opportunity because you're right. Conversations like this are discouraged nowadays.
Yeah, it's a little depressing. So thanks for watching.
We didn't want to depress anybody.
Yeah, we didn't want to depress anybody, so we decided not to depress anybody on video. So thanks for watching, and the first thing you should do after you listen to this is go have a conversation.
There you go.
Thanks.